What should the buyer expect at closing?
That's a good question. So first off, time expectations. Closings usually take an hour. That's the time block that the title company blocks out. I have seen them go longer, obviously. Typically, they'll go about 45 minutes to an hour. It really depends on how thick the buyer's loan packet is. On a cash purchase, a closing might only take about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how much chit-chat's going on. But with a loan, I mean, I've seen those go the full hour plus some just to get through, the 300 pages that the lender's having them sign. So it really depends on the lender's packet more than anything. But good rule of thumb is about an hour. Basically, what will happen is the buyers and sellers get together at the closing table there, and they're going through and signing all the documents. But they're also a good time to exchange keys. From a buyer standpoint, you're going to expect to receive the keys from the seller. Typically, also, it's a good time to ask what the garage code might be for the pad outside. Are there extra keys for sheds, that type of thing? It's a good time to get all of that information. What's the mailbox number? Things to that effect. So there's a lot of little things that also transpire at a closing, just on getting general information to the new buyer.
What should the buyer bring to closing?
So the buyer's going to want to bring at least one photo ID, a driver's license, passport, something to that effect. Now, I have been at a couple closings where the closer has asked for two, and it's always kind of a shock when closer asks for a second form of ID and you weren't prepared for that, and I ain't got one. So it really depends on the lender. Sometimes that's a lender requirement. So it's always a good idea to bring two. I've seen them take a library card, even a Costco card during that time when somebody doesn't have anything. But if you've got two forms of ID that are photo IDs, bring them both. That would be a must. Again, just you plan on bringing the cashier's check if you're bringing the rest of your down payment that way, and closing costs. If it's already been wired, then you don't need to obviously worry about that. Those are the biggies though. Bring money to be able to buy the house, and bring a photo ID to prove who you are, and get ready for signing a lot of paperwork and have your hand cramped up. Actually, depending on the lender's packet, sometimes that is a lot of documents and will take some time, as we talked about before, but sometimes it's relatively painless.
This will probably be the last time that the buyer has a chance to talk to the seller, so they should come prepared with any additional questions that they might have, sprinkler system information, or if they didn't bring the keys to the shed or whatever, where that's located in the house.
Yep. And there's always those things like the garage keypad and so forth that you want to make sure that you remember to ask. But sometimes it's about the school. Sometimes it's about the HOA. That's a real common one, especially when there's some unique circumstances there. One closing we just did, it was a subdivision that was outside the city limits, and the HOA did all the road maintenance. So of course there were a lot of questions about how that got done and what that looks like. Raw water, the irrigation water that's provided by the HOA. When do they turn it on? How does it work? When do they blow it out? So there's a lot of those type of questions that if you're in those unique situations, it's a great idea to ask. It's always kind of a bummer when it's 6 months later and something comes up and it's like, wow, we have no idea how to get the water turned on for the HOA. Of course, usually a neighbor is going to be able to answer, but it's nice to get as much of that as you can right at the closing, since it typically is the last time you're in front of the seller.